Right, everybody, we would like to welcome you to the fourth Cypography podcast. Now, you may notice that this podcast is actually numbered number 2. The reason that this is the fourth podcast is because we've just spent the last hour and 10 minutes recording, arguably, would you agree, Richard, one of the best podcasts ever done?
Yes.
Unfortunately, the said podcast is gone because after an hour and 10 minutes, the main camera with all the sound, the card corrupted. So we've lost everything. We then began the third Cypography podcast only to discover that Michael Bridger, aka Dog Rat, had not pressed record on the main camera with the sound. So this is our fourth podcast we have recorded. However, number 2 and number 3 are gone. So we're starting again. This is number 2. And we're about to have the same hour and 10 minute conversation that we've just had for the last hour and 10 minutes, which is going to be great. Hopefully we'll do it better.
We got to practice last time.
Yes.
That was the practice run. This is for real. And I think we should start off with more doom and gloom, mate. Which was the fish you were fishing for died.
No, I think we should firstly we will talk about your wig. Because that was actually what we started with last time.
So I'm going to start in that case by describing the ensemble that I'm wearing today. Partly because obviously I've got a hat on and a t-shirt. Is it hot? Is it cold? Nobody knows. It's quite warm, but I don't want anyone to be distracted by my hair. Because last time I had one guy message me and say, did I wear a toupee or a wig? Which is, of course, not the case, but just to sort of make sure we don't get similar distractions this time, I'm wearing a hat and I've matched it with my socks, which again is quite topical because someone asked me, could I not afford shoes? And I would answer by saying, I can. I would be wearing them were it not for Elliott's OCD where it comes to carpets, which you can explain.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure lots of you will agree, the sane among you will agree that when you're indoors, if the floor is carpeted, you should not wear shoes or trainers. Slippers are okay, I think. But for me, if you're on a carpeted floor, please, if it's at my house or in this case the office, please leave your shoes at the door. As I have done, you have done, and Michael behind the cameras has also done. So, you mentioned the carp that I was fishing for has died. So, for the last, I think about 4 years ago, I started fishing for a carp. Big common at the time, it was like mid to upper 40. I started in the autumn, I fished the autumn through. It got caught that autumn, as it always does. The following year, I went back in the spring and I fished hard from the spring through till the end of the autumn. The fish was caught twice in that time. Since that time, because I got to the point where I'd caught most of the fish in the lake, I've been timing my sessions more wisely. So the fish in question is a very hard fish to catch, not a fish that gets caught much at all. And the one thing about it was a very predictable carp in the sense that it would get caught in May and it would get caught in the autumn. So because I caught most of the other fish and because I didn't actually like the lake very much, didn't enjoy my fishing on there, you know. When I was catching them, it was great. When I was there and everything was going right, it was great. But the lake itself, very, very busy club water, not a very exciting lake, and I didn't enjoy the fishing unless I was catching them. You know, if you're catching fish, nothing else matters. But when you've caught most of the other fish, what you end up doing is you're faced with a case where really you're fishing for recaptures and no one wants to sit there catching the same old carp. So I would time my sessions much more wisely and I fish it at very particular times of year to stand myself with the best chance of catching that carp. And as I said a minute ago, it doesn't get caught a lot, but it always got caught at the same sort of times of the year. So it would get caught in May and it would get caught again in the autumn. So as you know, that was a fish I very much wanted to catch, but the lake was not a lake that I very much wanted to endure the, what comes with it. And that might sound silly to some people. You think, oh, well, if you want to catch one, you just put out with it. Nowadays, I find it a little bit harder you can't force yourself to enjoy something. Enjoyment comes naturally. There is no fix for enjoyment. You either like it or you don't. I loved that carp. I loved periods of my fishing on that lake, but I also very much disliked certain aspects of fishing that venue. And unfortunately, last week the fish died, and I'd just gone back onto there. So we're in, what is it, it's November now, isn't it? I went back there in October, prime time for that fish around the moon phases. The fish hadn't been caught. All the other fish in the lake had been caught, actually some of them more than once. And that carp was always the last one to come out, whether spring or autumn. 99% of its captures would be in a period where the rest of the stock had been out, and that would be the last one left. So you get to the point when the lake's not doing hardly any bites, everyone's just waiting for that one big one, and then boom, it gets caught. This time around, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, I think I've lost it," or it must have been lost, that kind of thing. And normally I was always of the opinion that it wasn't getting lost, it's just a hard fish to catch. And generally, people say they've lost it or this or that. When it got caught, look in the mouth, no hook marks. It's just a rare fish, a fish that doesn't get caught. A fish that gets caught on very particular weather fronts at very particular times of the year. And unfortunately, this time around, the reason it hadn't been caught, didn't get caught around either of the moons in September or October, which is when it would do its autumn bite, should it do them. It didn't get caught, and it would seem that the fish, I guess, was very unwell during the last couple of months and is now unfortunately dead. So my fishing at that lake has now come to an end. And I look at that in two different ways. Part of me is gutted because I would love to have caught that fish. Other parts of me think, do you know what? You didn't enjoy it there. You weren't enjoying it there, should I say. The love for the lake was gone, and it was more just a case of like, yes, I really wanted to catch the fish, but was I going to be giving it 110% effort? Probably not, because if you're not enjoying it, you can't be. So turning up in the spring for a month here, turning up in the autumn for a month there, which is what I would have done. Although I still think I would have had a very good chance of catching it, you need to, for a fish like that, I think you need to be 110%.
You say that, but it has this frankly remarkable record of coming out not only on the same period but on the same day.
Yeah.
Surely that's the most convenient fishing in the world.
Of course, and that is why I felt comfortable in a sense that I could happily go in the autumn. Right, it's been out, I'm not coming back till May, and people would go, you might catch it in between. I don't believe you. It never got caught in the winters. There was, my mate Kempy caught it years and years ago, 20th of December or something like that. You're talking 11, 12 years ago when it was £35. Since then, don't know of any winter captures. I hardly know of any summer captures. You literally spring and autumn. So,
did seem like a really, from the bits of insight that I got from speaking to you, it did seem like a really strategic campaign that you had on there, and you did catch some great carp, to be fair, El. Like that one, was it the one on the front cover of Total?
Yeah.
That mirror, incredible.
Yeah. Yes, that carp was. The one thing that surprised me about that lake, and we've actually just recorded last week at the lake during my session back around the moon. We recorded because I've filmed all my fishing on there for the last 2 or 3 years. I filmed it all, documented it all, and we filmed the first part in a series of Elliott's diary or whatever that will document my fishing on there. And one thing I said in that is how much the stock surprised me, because there were actually some really, really nice carp in there. I didn't know that at the time. I joined there to catch that carp, and it had some amazing carp.
One thing that I didn't get, we didn't get first time round when we did our rehearsal of this chat. Could you this fish was called the Warrior, right?
Yes.
Could you describe why it was an interesting carp to you?
So my thing, like when I was a kid in this area, like when I was growing up, I fished all the lakes around here. I fished all of them in my area. I said when I was a kid I wanted to catch one of the club lake commons at one of the big club lake commons. Now, we've had the Snake Pit Common, I never fished for that. I went there a couple of times, but never properly fished for that, just did a few trips. And then you had the Willows Common, which was, at the time, the best common in this area. Granite hard to catch. Previously to that, it was caught a bit more, but I won't go over the thing again, I've sort of said it in the past, but there was a period where the lake flooded, all the fish went out the lake, you were left with a small stock. That carp, from the day that flood happened, turned into one of probably the hardest fish I've ever fished for. And you can't argue that because of the way it just didn't come out. Incredibly,
Both males, though.
that was a male. Yeah.
What about the warrior? Female?
So the warrior was said to be a female. Years ago, it would spawn. I don't think it spawns anymore, and I think that's why it doesn't get caught in the summer. Whether it was a male or not, I don't know. It doesn't look like a male. To me, it looks every bit a female, and you do hear of things where people say that they change their sex and all that sort of stuff. I don't actually know the ins and outs of how that exactly works, but I think maybe they stop spawning at a certain age, that sort of stuff. And a carp that spawns, especially a big carp, like they spawn and they get caught on their way back up. I don't think the warrior spawned anymore, because if it did, I believe it would get caught. I think it's very hard in a 4-acre lake, 5-acre lake or whatever, to only get caught in May, only get caught in the autumn, you know. That period between the two where they've spawned and they're regenerating, they get caught. They can't, not in a lake of that size. The one in the Willows Common, the one I fished for before, which also died, that was a male. But when it was found dead, apparently it was full of eggs.
Weird.
You know, and that was like guaranteed as a male. Like everyone said it was a male. It never dropped weight. It never, like that to me was the typical male. It looked like a male.
Was that back when you were testing the hormone?
Yeah, my early days on the hormone. Apparently, I wasn't there. Apparently, when they opened it up, whether it had eggs in it, right? So don't. But again, that never spawned. It never got caught spawned out, things like that. So I would say that was a carp, was a male, and I don't know if I ever actually saw it in the right time of year, to when it would have had the spawning tubercles on it, whatever they're called, the little sandpapery dots, whatever the scales. I don't think I was ever there for them. It hardly got caught in the time I did on the lake. Weirdly, both of these carp, that lake and this one, I ended up catching all of the other fish, and I never caught them too. But they're the kind of carp that on very busy small lakes, that when they're doing so few captures, sometimes you just can't always be there. There's so many things, people mainly, that get in the way, and when they only get caught so sporadically, you're either there or you're not. Sometimes you're just not there. With the warrior, I was there during the period when I fished it hard. Of the 4 captures I think happened whilst I fished the lake, I was there every single time, and I was normally either next door or opposite when the bite came. You know, I was always very, like, one time it got caught out the swim I'd been living in 4 hours after I went home. So I came very close to it. But yeah, just 2 weird commons. But going back to my original point, when I was a kid, I said I wanted to catch one of the big club lake commons at over £47. I don't know why, I just had this thing when I was a kid. To me, a £47 common when I was 15, this was back when £40 commons were so a monster common like that, you know. And it was like the last one left. The Willows common died whilst I was fishing for it. Snakebit common died. I hadn't even tried to catch one. This was kind of my, all right, I'll fish for that.
What about the backup? Is that not not quite close enough to home?
I fished for that, but it wasn't as big. I caught that, but it wasn't. I just wanted to catch a massive club water common, and the Willows common and the warrior were hard fish to catch.
I like the warrior's head and mouth.
Mate, it was an incredible carp. And it was an incredible carp.
And perfect with its imperfections as well. It wasn't a scale perfect fish.
No, it had a big mark on its side. Basically, years ago, the lake was very snaggy. There's like an island with a plateau that runs out off the front of the island. There was a lot of snags. This is before my time, and there were a lot of snags that went out over that plateau. And apparently, well, this is definitely true, but the fish, someone was off their rods. The fish went over the plateau and through the snag, and he dragged it back through. And as he dragged it back through, he descaled it. And when he landed it and all its scales were gone, he was like, they were like, that's a warrior, that one. And that's how he got the name the warrior. And to this day, or till last week, it still had that incredible, you know, patch of scales. But its head was amazing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to catch. You know, fishing a 4-acre club water sounds to some people boring, but to me, it's fishing against all the people, fishing for a carp that's hard to catch. I like doing that. Sometimes it's nice to just to fish one you know you're going to catch. The warrior and the Willows common were ones that you could go, not just could I be here for a long time trying to catch these, but actually I could maybe never catch them. And you look at them and you think, right, if I'm going to fish for this, it could take time. There's no give. I know a lot of people that have fished for them carp that never caught them, that caught all the other fish, you know. And I will fall into that category now. both those lakes. You look back
Who'd
on,
have thought you'd have ended up on the wrong side of those two fish, you know?
and the Willows Common, I never lost my desire to catch that fish. I never stopped enjoying the lake. I loved every second of fishing that place, and my enthusiasm never dropped. With the Warrior one in the match bit, my enthusiasm towards the end did drop because I didn't like the lake. I didn't
also,
like the
how
surroundings.
could you possibly force yourself to be there when it wasn't going to come out?
No. And parts of me, like one thing we mentioned last time was I did a lot of edge fishing throughout the summer. Now, the lake is quite deep, quite snaggy, so although the fish wouldn't necessarily get caught regularly or to my knowledge, I literally hardly ever got caught in the summer. Maybe before my time there'll be captures, but I don't know of hardly any. The edge fishing would, the fish would come into the trees, they'd come into the snags, and I felt that fishing in that way, maybe I would catch it, But my mate Lee Apps, who runs the Brentwood Carp Show, he's fished there for donkey's years, right? And he's fished the edges on there, always. In fact, he's hardly ever fished out in the lake. He caught the stock time and time again, over, say, a 10-year period. He never caught the Warrior,
Can't you on these waters, it feels like Willows and there, you fish too well?
I don't know. Like, both of these fish, like,
You're a thinker.
maybe you fish too well, maybe.
You're a thinker, like, wouldn't you have been better sitting behind hinges the whole time on both lakes?
Maybe.
In the pond.
But when the Willows one, I caught all the other stock on hinges. I had the third biggest, I had fourth, third, second biggest, all on hinges, and never caught him. I came close. Again, I did come close. But one thing I've never done for either of these two fish is sit there only. I've always fished other lakes as well. Like, at certain times, I've always gone to other lakes as well. And this is the Warrior that's just died. This year, I've only been there. Well, I did 2 trips this year. Couldn't fish in the spring because my little boy, second child, was going to be born, or was born. And the previous year, I fished it a bit in the spring when it got caught, and then I came back in the autumn, did 2 or 3 trips, and then it got caught. But I won't go too in depth on this fish because I'm going to cover it in my diaries, but the Warrior in particular, I had some really, really close encounters with, because of how predictable it was in terms of the times of year when it got caught. I knew I could be there when it would come out, and I was for almost every capture that it did during my time. I was at the lake. One of the most interesting things is the 8th of May thing, and it got caught 3 out of 4 years on the 8th of May. So the only year it didn't get caught on the 8th of May during my time on there was the year of the lockdown. And when I say it got caught on the 8th of May, you might be thinking, oh, it came out in March, February, January as well. No, it came out on the 8th of May and then it didn't get caught again, then it would be the autumn, So a crazy statistic. I've never known anything like that from a fish.
So was the lake emptying off in the summer then? Or were they
No, they would still be there.
They
It's a
weren't
club
bounty
water.
hunters as such?
I wouldn't say the lake had the likes of, had a big group of anglers who you think like are going to be there and sit it out for them. Most people, especially even people in this area, like my close friends and stuff that would have fished for that carp, they hated the lake. They all said, I went there and I hated it. I went there and I hated it.
Because none of your lot have fished it.
No, because they hate the lake.
Right.
It's one of them lakes. It could be a lovely lake, but it's not. It had a very strange set of rules, so you have to book on to fish, which is crap. No one wants to book on to fish. You don't want to ring up, book on for the night. If there was no other anglers there, you couldn't do the night. You had to go home. So if you turn up to the lake and it was empty, and any other lake you're buzzing on there, you're like, mate, any chance you can fucking book on as well, so we can boat, so I can fish. Otherwise, I've got to go. So that's a shit thing. It's got 3 gates. You've got to drive through 3 gates to get to it. Very busy with just general club lake anglers. Often fully booked at 12 people in a midweek, stuff like that. The lake itself, the swims, big, open, gravelly swims that you can't get a bank stick into without making your palms bleed. No weed, relatively murky water, island in the middle, deep silt, full of bream, filled with bream.
That is such a game changer.
Filled with bream, mate, to the point like hell amount of bream. And you just listen to what that sounds like. You've got a really busy club water where you have to book on to fish. You're not allowed to do, you can't do more than 2 nights on this, or everything. There's just loads of shit things about it. The only good thing it had was the carp.
Yeah, and you've been released.
And yeah,
in the worst possible way, you've been released.
And that's what I mean. Like parts of me now, when it died, because of the last couple of years, made the decision a long time ago that like I would never put myself through stuff that I didn't want to do. I wouldn't, because when the willows common died, I thought, right, fucking hell, I've actually wasted. Now that it's dead, I've wasted a lot of my life fishing for that carp. Because when you look back, and because it's dead, all the time you did between. I said I wouldn't do that again, and this fish, rather than sit there through all the summers and all the winters, and maybe that's the worst thing I could have done, maybe if I'd have just sat it out. But actually I've caught a lot of other nice carp that I would never have caught if I'd have done that, so I don't regret it. I'm gutted that it's died, and I'm gutted that I never had the chance to catch it, but I caught the other carp, I came very close to it on several occasions, and if you're fishing for a rare carp in a busy club water, that's the reality of the situation, If you're fishing for a carp that comes out 10 times a year in a busy club water, you'll catch it, as long as you. But if you're fishing for one that doesn't come out much at all, and only comes out on, like for example, if you didn't go there on the 8th of May for the last 4 years, you missed the spring bite, that's gone. If you didn't go there in September, the middle of September to the middle of October, you'd miss. You're talking very small windows across a whole year, and then turn that into say 4 years, you've only got to miss little periods, and you would never have caught. So. That's the reality of. It's very rare to fish for carp that are kind of like that. Hard to catch in some ways, but But like I say, probably the most predictable carp I've ever fished for. You could turn up on start of May, fish till the middle of May. You'd be there when it got caught. You could turn up in the autumn and fish, and you'd be there for the autumn bite as well. So one of them. But yeah, I'm part of me is relieved that I don't have to. I would, like the other week when I went there, I'm loading my car thinking, I really don't want to go here. But I need to go here and I want to catch that carp, so I'm going to go. But if you really want to catch a carp, if you love everything about the lake, I'd have been there from the minute couple of weeks after they spawned, fishing right through. So in yourself when you want something bad enough. And I think that carp in the end, did I want it bad enough to endure all the shit that come with the lake? No. I don't think I did, and now it's dead. so that's that. And another thing I should mention: when I said earlier that my second child was going to be born this spring, when me and Gemma decided we would have a child, this was a long time ago. There was one rule that was put in place, and it would never to have a child in May. However, Gemma got pregnant and the baby was due to be born in May and can you guess what day it was due to be born on?
8th of May.
8th of May. So when and even Gemma knew about the whole 8th of May thing. And
well, to be fair, it does take 2.
I know.
I
know. I'm blaming her entirely though. You are right, it does take 2. But I'm still going to blame her. So when she got we knew obviously it was going to be May.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good idea before the due date came through.
Wouldn't have mattered if it was the 10th, right?
No,
but it
had to be the 8th, didn't it? Of all the days it could have been, it was due to be born.
The question is, though,
on the 8th.
If it was due on the 10th, would you have still gone and done a night on the 8th?
You know what? I think it would. No, because it got to the point this time, like Jen was so heavily pregnant. He was born on the 14th. 14th? Yeah, born on the 14th. But she was so heavily pregnant, and because we had Arthur.
Couldn't do anything.
Arthur's a bit of a handful, I felt wrong in leaving her, like, in that, I say state, it sounds a bit harsh, but leaving her swollen to the point of like she's about to give birth with him running around like a lunatic. So would I have gone on the 8th of May? Yes, because the weather that came in on that day, I would have said to Gemma, please, can I just go? And she would have said yes. But I remember sitting in the front room with Gem, looking out the window saying, like, it's coming out today, and sure enough it did. And the lad who caught it, a young lad called Jed, he'd fished it flat out that spring. I don't know if he caught. I think he'd had a few, like 7 or 8 or something. I don't really know. I haven't spoke to him, but I spoke to some other people, and he caught it. I think he was all packed up, ready to go, and you see a fish or something. He was like, worth 10 more minutes or something. He said so, and cast the rig to it, and then he caught it at £49.
Mad.
But yeah, and incredible carp, but it's sadly now gone. And a situation that has its ups and its downs. Like.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you talk about the fact that you didn't feel like you were fully committed, and it's something that I wrestle with all the time, because I'm in the similar position. The last fish I caught on the lake I'm fishing was before the last podcast, so September, and that was a bit isolated. With the rest of them have been in July and August, in a little bit more of a cluster. Not been many fish out, but I feel like if you really want it, just like what you touched on, you need to go the extra mile, and sometimes I'm not capable of going the extra mile. I've been saying to the missus recently, we'll have put Freya, our little one, to bed. If I haven't got work to do, she'll be like, "You're going to go to the lake?" And I'll go, "Yeah, I'm just going to go and listen for the carp." She's like the most bizarre pastime ever. So, it's dark now, pretty early. So
The carp listener.
Carp listening, and I've heard very little actually. But I mean, I think that's probably because they're showing in the middle of the night, like deep in the watches of the night. So like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm very rarely, unless I get woken by one booming when I'm fishing, I'm not there to hear it, and I feel like I'm always one step behind, and I'm always having to sacrifice a night in the wrong place to try and get in the right place. And when you've got one night a week and occasionally push it to 2, or if as happened recently when wife and little one went up to stay with the grandparents, I got a few nights. I'm losing time trying to find the fish, and it's not a lake that's easy to work out. It's changed. I think otter activity has really changed the game, because it was doable before, and now it seems like the hardest lake I've ever fished, bar none.
And there's only two carp that get caught nowadays as well.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. There's two carp that have made up, like, I don't know, I think like last year it was like 60% of the captures were the same 2 carp, and 3 times they were braced.
Yeah, braced. So 10 bites 1 year or whatever it was.
Yeah, and 6 of them were them.
Being braced.
Yeah, to be fair to them, the third time they weren't braced, but they were out on the same morning.
That was it. Yeah. Someone caught one, and then we were thinking he's going to catch.
Yeah.
Oh, you caught one,
and then the guy next door to me caught the other one. So, and this year there's been 9 out, 10 bites, and 6 of those are the same fish. But none of those 6 are fish that have been out last year, and a good proportion of those 6 haven't been out for years.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a good lake. It's a cool lake.
It's not. It's the worst lake it's the worst lake in the world. Depending on what, and depending on how far it pushes you. We've all been there, but it really has put me through the mill. Like mentally, it's very difficult when you feel like you can't explain why you're struggling so hard. It's not even like the fish are visibly out of bounds all the time, because that you could console yourself. Look, I just can't get on them. They've been pushed into an area by
last year when those 2 kept getting caught, you was like, where are the other fish?
Yeah, I put the drone up this year. I should hasten to add, I wasn't fishing, and the significance will become clear, because with the otters through a lot, you kind of think, well, what are we fishing for? The big one's not been out for 7 years, has been seen. But the rest of the stock, we had no real handle on what was still there, because it's big enough and it's broken up enough that they can get out and live out most of their lives away from the most of us. So, I was able to capture 28 carp on the drone in one shot, and there's not loads more than that in the lake, but they don't, for whatever reason, most of them don't. Some of them have never been caught. So, and we are showing no signs of breaking that.
It's strange, isn't it? Like, it is weird that.
If it was just me, I could explain it away.
There's
bad angling. There's good. There's other people trying.
Dedicated anglers.
Yeah,
I think that you've got lots of anglers in lots of different positions. Not lots of anglers, the wrong term. You've got a group of anglers that are all in. Some of you are in a similar position. Others are you in. You've got anglers of all varieties and positions on that lake, haven't you?
Yeah, we all fish differently.
All the bases are covered between you, aren't you? And no one ever seems to have like a glaringly.
No, not for years. So I'm looking forward to. I've got a winter ticket that starts in a couple of weeks, and to be honest, I've said that I won't fold on this lake, but I'll be glad when it's over for the year. I really will. I'll be glad to be sitting in front of a few more carp. I probably won't get a bite because, you know, it's still a tricky water that I'll be going to. But I will enjoy knowing that they're close, and then it's on me.
You don't want to go into a winter after a tough, like you don't want to go from a tough summer, spring, autumn into a winter, do you? Winters are hard.
Yeah, I mean, I do like it though. I do enjoy those short winter sessions, and I don't really care if I don't get one. I would love to start by trying to get one bite, isn't it? That's what I want. And I think my best chances is like we're in the start of November now. Ticket starts middle of November, let's say. My best chance, without doubt, is before Christmas.
Yeah, and
you know,
think
and then obviously
going somewhere new as well. It sort of reignites the like.
It does. Yeah,
whole new level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, to the point where last winter I was turning up.
Yeah,
it's dark, you know, in the winter. But I wasn't settling to it. I was just going to walk around until I heard something last winter. You know, it didn't actually happen, but I was doing it because once it's dark, you may as well be on your toes anyway. Why set up?
No.
So
I think that this time of year, especially, and in the winter, like there is no better time to hear them.
No, because the mornings in the winter, especially the mornings are often really dead.
Yeah,
I find like you're looking at a sea of birds out there, and not a lot else.
Yeah, I think winter, like middle of the night, I've always found middle of the night to be a really good time to hear them. Autumn time, and I was talking to autumn time. I think the evening is the time to hear them more so than.
What, pre-midnight, do you reckon?
I think so. In the autumn, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm there a bit late. You know,
but like 10 o'clock. Sometimes I don't think there's any sort of set pattern. And this is actually a conversation I had with Luke Stevenson the other day. I was fishing, he wasn't, for a change, and we were talking about. I was in a swim. It's on my second night, and I was like, the lake is small, about 30, 35 carp, and I was saying to him like, I know they're here, but I didn't feel like I was like on the main pack. Like, and obviously in the lake where there's only 30 odd carp, you're going to get, I would imagine, the bulk of them will generally always together. So I was talking to Luke, like, you know, I said, I've had a look up the other end. You know, I've gone and sat down the other end for a while. Sat down there for an hour, and I sort of said to him, like, this time of year, you can go and sit in a swim. Say you went there at 8 o'clock, you can sit there till 9 o'clock. I just sat on the floor on the board in the pitch black on my own, staring out of the lake. For an hour is quite a long time to just do that. Like, after a while, you start thinking, Jesus, like,
especially
when nothing is happening, you're just staring at black silence.
Yeah, and you know your phone's in your pocket, and we're all drawn to our phones now, aren't we? So it's like,
but this time of year, like, never is there a time where, like, you could go there at 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, see nothing, turn your back, walk up the other end, and all of a sudden they just, like, when they show in the autumn, I think a lot of the time, once they start, they're going regularly, but the times when they start, it can be like clockwork. It can be from 10:30 onwards, they'll just go mad. So I think, like, we were just talking about how sometimes going to sit in a swim for an hour, you feel like, oh, I've sat there for an hour, they must not be there. If you're sitting there for the wrong hour, it don't matter. You could sit there for 15 hours.
It's not very comforting, that, is it?
And if it's the wrong 15 hours,
yeah,
half an hour at a different time of day, you could hear 20.
It's pretty brutal.
And that's the reality.
The realities of fishing.
Yeah, like
carp fishing.
And that's why the most driven people, the ones that will do 2 hours in that swim or 3 hours in that swim, sat on the floor listening, watching, having seen nothing. They're the ones who over time will, and I'm not going to pretend for a second, I would go and sit in a swim for 3 hours in the night in the pitch black without doing anything. Like, but they're the sort of things and the sort of people that it will come good for them. You know, the ones that are willing to stay up late, get up early, and make them, until you are on fish and you know you're on fish, make the most of every second that you have at your disposal. They're the guys, we all know they're the guys that will generally do better in the end, like, because the carp will show generally at some point. And so no, it was my first night, because the second night, 7 o'clock, they just started going mad in front of me, like, and I heard.
And you blanked?
And I blanked. And it's only shallow. I reckon I heard 30 odd shows. When the first couple went over, I was like, oh mate, I'm having them. Like, this time I'm going to have them. And yeah, so then my first night I didn't catch anything, didn't hear anything. That was when I went and sat at the other end. But the second night, I knew I was on fish. I had seen a few there in the day just cruising, but I felt much more comfortable. I found nice areas, and I was really happy with my rods. First night was a bit hit and miss. I only went in there just before it got dark. Second night, I'd spent a bit of time in the day leading up. I had two nice areas and everything was happy. After dark, just about 7 o'clock, they started sloshing out to my right, reeled a rod in, put a single on them. I had a random rod out to the left, just up to a snag bush, that just as a single. So I reeled that in, cast that out of the shows. But then for the next few hours, they were literally sloshing in front of me, over my rods, and it's 5-6 foot deep, clear water. I'm getting no liners, and it's weedy, which is weird in itself. And they kept showing. By the time I went to bed, at like midnight, I was thinking, I ain't going to catch one here, because you could just tell they were showing almost a bit too much, and the no liners and all. I sort of went to bed thinking I will get one because they're here, like, and it's shallow, and I will get one. But part of me at the same time was thinking you should already have had one. And sure enough,
Can you fish zigs?
yes,
You've caught them there before, haven't you? I think.
yeah, I've caught them on zigs there before, but not that time of year. The autumn, right? It's the point. I'd say autumn is the time people fish zigs the least. But I would say it's actually one of the times that carp show the most. They show a lot in the autumn. Like,
I saw Jimmy put something on
Big,
Instagram the other day about all show and no go again, Jimmy
happens
Armstrong.
all the time, mate. Like, I remember I used to talk to Darryl about it all the time. It's one thing we used to always talk about was this autumn period where, like, they're just always showing. Like, and sometimes you can get on them after dark, put singles out and get them. I've had loads of times over the years in the autumns where they're showing like mad. You get on them and then you don't catch them. And if they were going down and eating, going crazy, like it sort of appears that they are, then you would catch them. And when they show too much, you know, constant showing is normally a sign of, like, I don't think it's not, for me, it's not a sign of fish that are feeding. I don't think that is. It's something else. What it is, don't know. But I think zigs in the autumn are probably one of the most, from what, and I don't do it myself, because normally you sort of go through a couple of trips of fishing from on the bottom, and then by the time you've thought about it, it's sort of over, and you think, oh, you look back and you think, oh, I wish I'd tried zigs then. Maybe that's the game changer, I don't know. But yeah, they showed on me a lot, and then I didn't catch nothing, and went home the next day. Like, but that was a new lake. It's where I'm going to fish this winter. Obviously, that fish with the Warriors passed away, and I'm going to fish there. It's a nice little lake, not too far from home. I've done a winter there before. Quite a small stock of carp, which is always nice. And it's some nice ones among
It's
them.
actually a lovely little lake.
It is. It's a
Little dwarf oaks all around. It's
yeah,
really
oak
quite
trees all the way
interesting.
around.
Yeah.
A really nice little pit. It's like a
Quiet, middle of nowhere.
it's a gnarly little old pit. It's been there donkey's years.
Love the big flints in the bank and that.
Yeah. Again, worst place for. The problem with it is it's very small. And when I fished in the past, because it's the winter, I never really had any other anglers around me. It's just me, really. You go there, and I've spoke to people that have fished it other more popular times of the year. It is the worst place you could ever fish with someone turning up with you, because it is small. And these guys turned up the other morning, 7 o'clock. Bearing in mind it's getting light at like that sort of time now, 7:30 really. They turned up, banging their bank sticks in for like half hour, marker floating, baiting up. Like, and you're sat there, you're just thinking, come on, mate. And the poor guy who was next to me, who they were doing it in front of, he's just like, I've looked down at the bank at him, and you can just see him, the life draining out of him as he's thinking, you just wrecked my whole morning.
The crazy
fishing.
thing about that is, that's someone's, like, that's 12 hours of someone's life that's effectively just been
ruined.
wiped from the record.
But I'll tell you what one of the guys did. I've never seen this done before, right? So he put his marker float out. I think they're a couple of old boys. Put his marker float out, and then he sat down on his chair like 20 yards back from the water and baited up to his marker float.
From the chair,
out of a carrier bag of boilies, one at a time. So he sat on the chair, like must be 20 yards back from the water, and he just sat there from his chair, catapulting one boilie at a time, really accurately to his marker float. And we just like sat there and admired how well he was baiting to this float.
You know that if he'd been at the water's edge, he'd have been 20 yards past
But
the marker.
the sit down on the chair bait up was a.
Keep it consistent, mate.
I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
I wonder if he spots like that as well.
I don't know, but one thing we did talk about in our rehearsal was these big weather systems, Al. I know we kind of talked a little bit about the things that can have an influence on fishing in terms of the moon last time. And I was talking to Adam Penning recently, a bit of a name drop, and we were just chatting about the fact that these big low pressure systems don't seem to actually be that productive anymore. Certainly the big weather stuff.
Yeah, I would say, I think like big pressure drops. My favourite kind of weather would be I'm not a massive fan of a big wind. If it's in the winter, I am. I think in the winter, the most important thing of any weather system is the wind. I think if you got 20 degrees for 3 days, you don't get 20 degrees. Let's say you got 25 degrees in January. I think if that doesn't come coupled with a wind, you may as well not have it at all, unless the lake you're fishing is very shallow. If you're anything over like 8 to 10 foot, I think you have to have that wind with the warm temperatures for them to make any difference. And I've fished a lot of winters over the years. I'm sure anyone else that fishes through the winter will know and will agree in the sense that, or in the fact that it is those big, windy, warm weather fronts that bring the most, bring the most activity, but they're always the windy ones. The warmth alone for me is not enough unless the lake is very shallow. Then it is. But if you don't have that big wind on the water to warm the water, to turn the surf. No, not talking to Simon, made that thing about, what did he say? Once you go from a 2 acre lake surface area, you've got 2 acres of surface area, you put a wind on it, you massively
increase
the surface area of the lake, which is getting warmed, which is...
Does the reverse happen when it's cold wind then, do you think?
Oh, it must do. More water's being cooled.
So those big northerlies you like?
Yeah,
probably...
more water's getting cooled. I think a lot of the time, like once it gets to a certain temperature, the actual temperature of the wind can't be any colder than the water anyway. It's probably warmer in one way.
True.
Even though it feels cold to us, it's probably still warmer than... but those like, for the big pressure drops in the autumn and that, where it's just like, I love it when it's just warm, raining. Wind is good. It's just it's them 50-mile-an-hour winds and that I've never found to be that great. I'm sure there'll be loads of cases where, and I've had cases myself over the years where those massive winds, I've caught on them. But a proper pressure drop with a warm weather front, rain and all that, those grey cloud, those days are my favourite. For me, they're the best.
See a bit of, you can spot them and the fizzing and everything. You can see, look, it's flat, calm,
like it's just warm, wet, grey. Like everything's getting wet, but it's getting wet slowly, and like I think they're like a pressure drop for me. If that's dropping down to like 990s and that, I'm electric. If it's coming with a 50-mile-an-hour wind at the same time, great. But particularly in the winter, I think those big winds in the winter, they are absolutely key to the fishing. I think other times of year maybe not as, they have their biggest effect at that time of year. That's what I'm getting at, I think.
Now, I think we need to take a bit of a sidestep, El, and update everyone on something that we talked about last time. Now, I was a particular pains to point out last time that I was quite sorry to see, because I've been quite sorry to see the Brexit with you and Dave potentially not happening as much, and I love the chemistry between you guys and said as much. The one bright spot on the horizon which could have potentially replaced my enjoyment of that type of thing was you going away with Jim, and it hadn't. We said it was going to happen. It hasn't happened yet.
No, but we are going next week. It's been rescheduled. I say rescheduled. Jim has cancelled on me 3 times, so it wasn't rescheduled. I was cancelled on because right. How do I put this? Jim is very. Jim likes to do things his own way. He's very much used to fishing on his own. We all know what he's like. He's very much him against the fish. Nothing is in his way. No baggage. No. Hence why he doesn't like making people cups of tea and things like that in the morning, because it's all baggage. So me tagging along with him or going fishing with me is baggage, and me organising it all. I think the downfall so far has been me organising it, because I'm very happy to do things at the last minute. I'll choose a venue, book a crossing 2 or 3 days before I'm going to go, and I'll get in my car and go. I'd go for 2 days, 3 days, doesn't bother me. Jim likes to do everything more methodically, more planning, know where he's going well in advance, know where he's parking, know where, just be more organised. And I'm just kind of not that way inclined. I kind of like the fact of doing it a little bit more drop of the hat. So we've booked a few things, and then he's cancelled on me every single time. The last time he cancelled, I found 3 venues. He kept saying to me, where are we going? Where are we going? You're not doing any planning. You're not planning it. And I was like, I am planning it, mate. It's being planned. Don't worry. And then I rang him at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, which we'd planned, the phone call. And I was like, right, we've got this lake. He was like, no, well, where will I park my van? Can I park next to the lake? No, you can't. Well, I don't want to go there because I need to be near my van. Okay. Well, we'll go this lake. No, don't want to go there because there's been trouble there of English people having a bit of shit with their motors in the past. Apparently it's not like that now. Didn't want to go there. Then the third place, again, couldn't park near the lake. Wants to be near the van. So the venues I had found, which I thought were great options, weren't. And it's literally a simple case of like two very contrasting styles of people trying to come together. We're probably like polar opposites really in the way he works and the way I work. So it's been cancelled by him 3 times, but we are going next week. This time around we're going to go to, the plan is, to go to Belgium and fish a few different venues. Last time we were only going to go for 3 days. This time we're going to go for 5, so longer trip, which Jim is more comfortable doing. And we're going to go to a variety of different places. A little bit like, a bit of a mini road trip. That could all change, I'm sure. I think it's going to be quite weird fishing with Jim. I can't imagine he's going to want to. I feel like he's going to want to dictate play. You know, I don't think if I want to move up the river or the canal or wherever we are, and he doesn't, I can't see him going, oh yeah, we'll just go together because you want it. I think it's going to be. I did actually say to him after the 3rd cancellation, I was like, do you know what? Fuck it. You fish, I'll just film you because it's easier. We'll go where you want to go, do it all on your terms, and it just would probably work better. But he actually said to me, if Cypography are going to pay for the crossing, he wants me to fish because he'd feel bad if he didn't, which was nice of him. But I'm hoping this time around, and I should book the crossing because he's been ringing me today while we've been doing this because he wants me to book the crossing, and I haven't done it yet. So I need to get that done because he'll probably cancel on me again. But the plan is finally to go next week and do a bit of a Belgium.
What do you think people are going to expect from that? Because for me, it just gets, the best stuff is when you and Jim argue, and like when you push him and punish him, because he's not renowned for his.
I think it's going to be. I can't wait. I can't wait to see him trying to talk to people. I just can't wait to see him trying to talk to people that speak in Flemish and that to him. I think it's going to be amazing.
But bear in mind, your Flemish is what?
0. But I'm hoping maybe at the roundabouts I'll be like right here or left here, mate, and try and get him to go round the wrong way to get him a bit flustered and that. It'll be fun. We'll have a good laugh, I think, or we might have a terrible time. But I'd like to think we'd have a good time. And yeah, I'm hoping we're gonna go to a few different places, catch some nice carp. That's literally all I would like to happen from it, really. And I think based on the fact that he's been out there recently, he's been going quite regularly, and he's not been catching loads of fish, but he has been catching fish. I think it'd be nice just to go and catch a few. He doesn't want to catch loads. He's already said that to me. He's watched some of the things we've done this year, and he's like, I don't want to go somewhere where we're going to get loads of bites. So just a few nice fish between us to be a good laugh. And yeah, it's just gonna be funny.
In my head, things go so badly that on the way home you don't speak a word to each other all the way in the van.
We always do this thing after 24 hours, he's like, just fucking go. And I was like, if you can't handle me for 24 hours, how are we going to do 5 days? And because Jim
is not a social angler.
No. And I think that's what, when I'm out of him for 24 hours, that's why in the end he gets so, and obviously because we're filming, I'm like,
it's pretty intense.
Can you, mate, stop, can you do this, don't cast out, don't do that, don't move, don't do that. And he gets, like last time I went out of him, it's really windy on his mic, right? To the point where it was gusting so badly that the background noise, I was like, I don't think we can even do this interview, Jim. He's like, what are you on about? What do you mean? Why? Because the trees above us are so loud, it sounds like we're next to a road. But I can denoise it and get rid of that. But while we're doing the interview, every now and then there'll be a big gust and it would blow on his mic to the point where his audio was gone. And I'm like, stop. He was fucking fuming that I was stopping him. And I'm like, mate, you can't just, we're doing an interview, it's like a story-led film. Halfway through your story, you can't just have wind. And he's like, oh, it's more natural. And I'm like, yes, there's natural, and then there's unhearable audio that no one is going to understand what's going on. But it happened 4 or 5 times. By the end of it, he's like, doesn't want to do it anymore, doesn't want to film anymore. So yeah, I think over 5 days, don't know, it'd probably get really stroppy. I might as well, because I can be a bit like that. But it'd be fun. It'd be fun. Worst case, I'll just bully him for a few days, and at least I'll have fun.
Poor Jim. I suppose the kind of biggest thing on my horizon, filming wise, is we've got a Redmire trip end of this month. So really
it's good to have that.
Really
Nice.
good to have it. It's going to be different. There's not been a Redmire film for a few years that I can think of.
No, I mean,
It's later than you'd want to be there to experience the pool in its most majestic kind of form. But good weather. Let's pray that it doesn't get too wet, because when that pool gets, it's got an inflow and an outflow over the dam, I think it can go red. The clay in that part of Herefordshire is extremely red, and hence the pool can just turn. On a sixpence, it'll go completely red. So, and I think in my mind's eye, I want it still to be a little bit weedy and clear, and so that when we go there, the fish gives themselves away by smoking up, because that's what they do there.
yeah, that's what it's like.
We're taking Alan Blair, which is great. I think we talked about in our last take at this that, he would be most people's first choice. The only reason Alan wasn't our first choice is because we wanted to take someone for the first time. And Alan, most of you will have seen his first visit. I think it was his first visit to the pool. He did really well for a Nash YouTube film.
Dressed for the occasion.
Yeah, dressed for the occasion. But this time, we're pretty serious about trying to get a much later bite from Redmire. And this is post all the work being done that the estate did with Mark Walsingham. The pool I haven't been back since. Last time I was there was 2012. So I haven't been for long. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was it?
Yeah.
Was it that long ago when you were in McGarth on it?
Yeah.
Oh my
Flies
God.
by, doesn't it?
It does fly by.
Do you know that?
I would have been 10 years younger then. Ish.
Well, most of us were.
Yeah, we would have been. What I mean is, I feel like I would have been an actual child at that point. Like 20.
But you know what?
I'd have been 20 years old then.
Yeah.
You could have been 11 years younger, to be fair.
Yeah, possibly.
But you were probably 10 years younger, yeah.
And most notable for it wasn't just the fact that we were all 10 years younger that was poignant. It was the last ever.
If anyone out there wasn't, if 10 years ago anyone out there wasn't 10 years younger than they are now, we would love to hear.
If
from
anyone
you.
out there was
8 or 9 years younger, maybe 10 years ago.
It was the last ever Chris Moyle show on Radio 1 back then, and we all sat and listened to the somewhat irreverently, I guess, at Redmire. It seemed quite poignant because obviously it was the end of an era for a lot of us who were of a certain age, and back then the pool was very different. They've done so much work to it; it's been completely drained. A lot of it desilted. They've installed, I think, sort of silt traps upstream to try and stop it from silting up as quickly in future. I think it's otter fenced now.
How deep is that lake now?
Ooh,
because it was shallow, wasn't it? Not
yeah,
previously?
Apart from Pitchford's Pit, which is reputed to be bottomless. But
I bet it's not.
you're not allowed to put a marker float out in Pitchford's
Mythbuster. I bet there is bottom there somewhere.
Yeah, so well, I think the way it's been handled has been quite nice, because the fish that went back, there's been no pictures taken.
When
there were no
back,
specifics.
What do you mean?
So the fish were taken out.
Right.
They removed all of the young carp, which had been potentially bred from some ghost carp that were put in there. So anything that could have been contaminated, so the original Leany strain could have been contaminated only up to a certain point. So anything below that age was moved out, because I think that there was a problem with one of the ponds on the site, perhaps, and the owner at one stage, the owners of the estate, the Richardson family, had moved some ghost carp into the pool, and then they bred with, because Redmire is a very productive lake, shallow, warm, weedy, not many predators, so they breed so well in there. So anyway, they removed those younger fish just to eliminate that ghost carp strain.
Which is nice, isn't it?
So everything that went back is true Redmire,
Yeah.
And it's never had a stocking outside of the Leany.
That's what I was going to say. That has there been a Redmire stocking? No.
Now the fish that have gone back, I don't think number that high anymore. The pool was definitely easier when there were lots of small carp in there. I think I think we tried to work it out the other day. Certainly 50 fish, you might be looking around that kind of number, and they were very sensitive about the way it was all handled, because obviously a big part of Redmire's history is myth. Oh, not the history. A big part of Redmire's appeal is the fact that there's a certain amount of myth. So you empty the pool, you see exactly what's in there. No one's to know that. So everyone that was involved with that netting are almost like they've sworn to secrecy. So what went back, no one's quite sure. Just so as not to destroy the myth entirely, because there were fish like the Dick Wheel's linear, I think it was, maybe the black linear, whatever. There was a big linear supposed to have been still around quite late, quite a long time after most of the original fish had died, or the older fish had died. I'm sure that it's not there, but we don't know for sure, which is the beauty. Yeah. So, I jumped on, back in January, I jumped on the whole phone wars thing, which for anyone who doesn't know how you book Redmire, on, I think it was like the 23rd of January. In fact, it moved this year, but usually it's sort of late January. You have to get on the phone and phone the main man, Les Bamford, who is the guy that has controlled the fishing for many years. So I rang in the region of 2,000 times that day. And I
remember you doing it.
Yeah. We went on a family walk in the woods, and I just had the phone, just call, cancel, call, cancel, call, cancel, call, cancel. And then we ended up, we did the whole family walk. We'd spent the morning at home, family walk in the woods, back home, about 2:00 in the afternoon, finally got through. And Les was a bit sort of flustered because someone's connection had just dropped. And he thought that presumably I was the same guy again, and I wasn't. So whoever that was, we nicked their
we stole
spots.
our trip.
So sorry about that, but that is sort of like the cut and thrust of phone wars, and even at that point, I just got the week. I didn't know that we were going to be able to film. It was a bit speculative because they don't allow film. One of the rules that you get sent when you go there is that you can't film there. So luckily, we spoke to Les, and he spoke to the new owners who have granted us permission to film.
Thank you, Les and owners.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. But we'll be going there with Alan, and I think Alan will take everything that's needed. He's going to pester them.
Yeah, he'll catch them out of there. I'll be gobsmacked if he doesn't catch one out of there.
Yeah, you'd think so.
It suits him.
It's like an acre and a half.
Yeah.
He's going to have it to himself.
Maggots and a bushwhacker, I reckon. I'm going to call it now.
Yeah.
Bushwhackered maggots.
Well, whatever. I think we're just bringing something that little bit different now. By going the extra mile, and we wouldn't have got the trip. Somebody had to spend time on the phone, and I want to go to Redmire again anyway.
Yeah, we should point out your fishing as well. Before you've got to.
No, it'll be afterwards if I do at all.
After, yeah.
If I do it, but then that's assuming that by the end of a shoot, I'll have something in the tank.
You'll be able to drop straight into the dolly once Alan's done all the hard graft. You just be able to slot in behind him.
Yeah, first dibs. Well, I think, and unfortunately, it's fair to say that I don't think you will be fishing now, will you? I think I get the sense that probably you won't be.
I'm not sure.
But it wouldn't be the first time.
I feel bad in going there and pretending like I don't want to go there and pretend like Redmire to me is this like place that I've grown up obsessed with, because I haven't. I would be lying if I said that I had. And part of for me going there and fishing that lake should be that you really want to fish it, and. I'm not saying I wouldn't fish it, because I would happily go there, but I would, if we can get it to the point where maybe either Alan's on his own or someone else who would rather do it does it with him, then to me, great. Because just out of a little bit of a sign of respect to the place, I know that it's the holy
an
grail.
Interesting one, because why do we fish Redmire? Why do we want to go to Redmire? Perhaps people out there can have their own say on whether would you like to fish Redmire, and if so, why? Because
I'm happy knowing and seeing what I know about that place was all those years ago. For me, that's enough. Like
when you have those any lake, any time questions.
No one's ever said that yet.
Well,
we've asked a lot of people that question.
How could you not want to be at Redmire in the 50s? Probably when they didn't know anything about what was in there, really. Later on, the fish got quite well known. But at the point when Walker first went there, there was a heck of a lot of. I mean, he netted a 58 pounder that was stranded in the shallows, and that that was never caught.
Crazy.
So there were, I imagine that was spawn bound, but there were bigger carp in there then that never came out subsequently. So to have that genuine unknown with a strain that looked like it did, and you only have to look at the Redmire pool book to see what those fish looked like. That's a good shout if you're
That's
any
what I mean.
lake
For me,
anytime.
I would rather not go there, and my only vision of that lake be the pictures and that I've seen going back.
Yeah.
If I go there, if I come on that shoot, I'll fish. Do you know what I mean? If I go to the lake, I will fish. I will either not go on that shoot, and my thing of Redmire just be as
really
I know
have
it.
to say Redmire as well.
Sorry, you always said it to me, Redmire. So if I go to Redmire, I fish, or I just don't go at all, and it lives in my mind as like
it's done some
the place
some
I've seen pictures
lovely carp recently as well, and I think only this week did the first 30 pounder for quite
That's
a
a long
few
time
years.
since it's done, yeah,
quite a few years. And do you know what a friend of mine was saying to me? I think Chris Ball had done a list of the 30 pound Redmire carp that were ever caught, and it's not that many.
Well,
no, I think you're looking at, top of my head, stand to be corrected because I haven't seen the list. My memory is that he said it was something like 20.
Right.
So not loads of 30 pounders were ever actually caught. There were definitely more that weren't
caught, yeah.
But once you got to the Maddocks and Springate days and the Ritchie days, fish like the nude leather, they were the characters that would get caught quite a lot. The 30 pounders were few and came out. A lot of the big ones, perhaps like the big Yates's beer barrel, 44 pound, only ever caught the ones that we know of. So I don't know. The fact that they put those fish back and we still don't quite know what's there, and there are good fish coming through, it means that there's plenty of scope for a bit of mystery and a bit of romance. And if we can get, I don't know, if we can get maybe a bit of food going, in the evening pitch or something like that, on a dark November evening, who knows? I hope we can get some of the magic of Redmire across, and I'd like to think that we can do more shoots like that.
Actually, it's quite a cool time of year to do that film there, because if you could pick, you would never pick that time of year. So the fact that we're doing it that time of year, in a way, is nice, because I bet you if someone does a Redmire film after this, it will be in June, May, or whatever,
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the time people have booked that first week, because it used to be like an auction, a sealed bid.
They have a close season on there still, shouldn't they? Do they keep the close?
I think it goes all the way around.
Does it?
I think just people like
have the first week.
I don't know, I'd have to check that, but people, the first week's significant because it's the first week.
Yeah.
Whether they allow fishing after March the 15th, I'm not sure now, to be honest. I was under the impression it's fished all year round.
They do, yeah.
But the first week is the first week.
Yeah.
And it does tend to go for a bit of money. So, in fact, I have been there on the first week with Corda when we did some filming for the big fish off there, which was, quite crazy.
Was that the first week, was it?
I think so. I think good mate of mine, Adam Fisher, who runs the Angling Dreams, and the Fisher's Tackle Shop in Ross on Wye, which we'll probably go to when we're over there. He'd got the first week and sort of sublet, I think, a bit to Corda.
Right, okay.
I think that's how it worked. But no, Adam's no stranger to the pool, and if you are looking to get there a few times, then it's something that should be done. And I think a lot of us are looking forward to it. So that's only a few weeks away. So we'll have been there and done it.
It is literally
by the time you see another podcast, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
But actually, if you don't go out, it'll be a long history of you not going to Redmire, won't it? So.
Yes, it will, because. I remember the first time I told you this, you looked at me like you wanted to strangle me. When I was a kid, 16, 15 or 16, just left school, my dad booked me a week at Redmire. I'm sure it was a week. Redmire, sorry. My dad booked me a week at Redmire. And when I left,
the best dad in the world, I mean, come on.
I know. And I didn't know what the place was. Like I said earlier.
You do know it costs like £1,000
Yeah,
as well.
It was a bit expensive. Yeah. I know. And it was It would have been, if it wasn't the first, I don't want to say it was the opening week because I don't know if it was, but it would have been very much around that time because the lake I was fishing at that time, it was middle of June, start of July. It was that period of fishing. And I had the time of my life fishing a little club water around the corner of my house with my friend. But me and my friend, my fishing buddy at the time, were supposed to be at Redmire. I'm going to call it Redmire.
Yeah, go on. Everyone,
We're supposed to be at
everyone knows what you
Redmire,
mean.
and we forgot that we even had the trip booked. And I think it was when like Les, was it have been Les? Would have been Les. Would have been ringing my dad like, "Where are you?" You know, we just didn't go. Like, and I didn't want when Dad was like, "What you doing?" I was like, "Dad, I'm absolutely." I was proper catching them at the time from this date, and we just like, "Nah, we're not going." And then years down the line,
But like you say,
you know,
it wouldn't have meant anything to you.
it would have been good, but it didn't mean. And this is what I'm saying now about like me going there now and pretend I'm not going to go there. And I love what Redmire was. It's one of the most incredible places. But to go there now to fish to me wouldn't mean as I'd rather listen to someone tell the stories of when they fished it years ago. Like when we sit with Richie and he talks about the stories, I'd rather listen to him talk about that, see his old pictures, than I would go there myself and fish it. Because actually, me fishing it wouldn't. As it is now, it just it wouldn't. It's different. So I didn't go there then. I may not go there this time, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure. I don't want to sound like I'm pooing the place because I'm not. I'm absolutely not.
No.
But I want whoever goes there. You know, I want whoever goes there to really want to go there because I think if you're gonna fish Redmire, see, I can't even pronounce the place. So I think if you're gonna fish there, you know, you should be a guy who really wants to fish there. So I think the place deserves that much.
No, Alan is a
And
good
Alan
fit.
is that perfect guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of always strikes me. You live in the present, and like you're interested in the big carp scene as it is today, more than even.
Yeah, I just didn't grow up obsessed over that lake. I didn't. I learned at a later date as an older guy the significance of that place, and it was a truly magical place with some amazing carp. You know,
The biggest thing you can say about Redmire,
it was then. You know, to me.
The biggest thing for me about Redmire, putting aside all of the romance, because Yates's writings on there were hugely important to me, and the mystery that he developed around that, with the writings and the things he saw, I put that to one side. Richard Walker fishing at Redmire, and then probably Jack Hilton after him, are the two guys that shaped what we do. The sort of more serious end of the big fish carp. There wouldn't be a carp scene without Richard Walker.
And it's those periods in time.
Yeah.
Like Raisbury. If you said, "Do you want to go Raisbury tomorrow?" I'd be like, "No, I don't. I'm not bothered." Like, "Do you want to go?" There's loads of lakes now. If you went to me, "Do you want to go there tomorrow?" I'd say no, because what they are today, to me, they're still great fisheries in their own right. But the magic of that lake is in many ways for me is gone because that period of time which made that place so special has since passed. So they kind of, and that's my opinion
It's
on
interesting
that.
because people see the world in different ways, don't they? And
I would want it to go to Redmire then, not now.
no, exactly. You wanted it when it was.
I want to go Raisbury then, not now.
best.
Right.
Which is to almost disregard the idea, the notion of atmosphere. Now, I did write a bit about this when we went to Birch Grove because there were quite a lot of places that because I could never go to these places and the people I enjoyed reading wrote about them. Paisley with Mangrove and Birch Grove, Yatesy with Redmire, and you in your mind, it's your mind and what it does that sort of gives a place an atmosphere, casts that shadow when you go there because there's no such thing as atmosphere. I don't think. Places don't have a feel. It's what's inside that gives them. It's what we overlay onto the lake that gives a place atmosphere. So I'm interested to know whether you've ever fished anywhere that you felt had a certain specialness to it.
Yeah, I have. Like the Carp Lake when I first went there because I went there feeling like I was sort of, although it was very much the sort of end of the best time, I felt like those carp were still there. You know, so if you went to me, some of the carp that were in Redmire all those years ago are still there. Do you want to go? I'd be like, yes, mate, let's go now.
Because you want to touch,
want that.
You want to be able to touch something.
Yeah, what made it magical, I want a piece of that. I don't, like, when that ends, you know...
The lake doesn't retain anything.
No. For me, a lake can have the best fish in the world in it. Once they're gone, I don't really care what you put back in after that. To me, when they're gone, the lake kind of doesn't die with it. That's the wrong term. But like I say, the Carp Lake, Raisbury, Longfield, all those lakes. What made them great at the time, once those periods and the fish go, the anglers go, that period in time is gone. Going there years down the line, to me, it's just not quite like. I want to be there in the moment, not pretending, not pretending I am. So.
Yeah, no, it does make sense, and it's, I my hope is that there are levels of specialness of places, and that exist outside of my head. I don't think there necessarily are, but wouldn't it be great to think that atmosphere can collect at a place, and it's a kind of tangible.
And I think that's probably one place that definitely can. But my Redmire knowledge isn't deep enough, strong enough for me to go there and be like, this is that swim. I don't know the same as the swims. I don't know enough about the place, and I've never obsessed over the place enough to go there and fully appreciate it for what someone else like you can.
Yeah.
Stand in a swim, be like, this is the chapter I read. This is where this happened. For me, I'll be like, where's this one, Rich? What swim's this? What's that swim there? Like, I know bits about Redmire.
Yeah.
I know enough about it, but I'm not going to pretend to be like someone that. I'm not going to pretend it means more to me than it does, and I know more about it than I do, because just because I don't feel the need to do so. Like, and that would be disrespectful to the heritage of that. What I know is an incredible place. Like, so.
Yeah, and it's so good that we've still got access to that, because obviously when an estate is sold, you might lose it.
Yeah.
The whole community loses it.
Yeah, which would be a terrible shame.
Yeah, it would. I think I'm right in saying the new owners are salmon anglers, or do a bit of salmon fishing. Yeah. So, great that they've seen fit to leave it open, and actually, and props to the Richardson family for restoring it before they left the site, because they could have just sold up and gone. Yeah. But they wanted to leave the lake in the best tip-top shape for the next 100 years. So, let's hope that this is just the start of a new. The fish are definitely there.
Well, it is officially the start of from what's happened. Well, it's sounds like it is. The new Redmire.
And good lakes will always produce big fish. Yeah. So 100%. we might be going back in 10 years, Al, and you might be buzzing for it, because there's that 30-pounder, which is a lovely scaly carp, is got 10 years more history, and it's 42 pound.
You never know.
In a tiny lake, and it does produce, the unlikely Redmire. So. From one sort of place that is very much rooted in the past to a place that kind of I've been to recently. In fact, we washed up on the shores of Burfield recently, didn't we? Yeah. Which is another, it's hallowed turf with a fish more pertinently for you that's still in there. Yeah. So potentially casting its theatrical shadow, as Yates put it, over everything that goes on at the place.
Yeah. With Sam.
Yeah, Sam Torro. Yeah.
Yeah. So. In fact, this is. I think you should maybe lead into the Sam thing, because.
Well, I'd been speaking to Sam a bit on the lead up to it. I think I hadn't met him. We'd been talking. You'd never met him before. Sam is in the final throes. In fact, he's probably gone to print the Northern Chapters book, and we were lucky enough actually to see in The Cunning Man the proofs of the book as he went through them with Gaz Fareham, who's been his sort of co-collaborator, although Sam has done most of the work. Gaz has been a sort of a guiding figure, helping him through some of the publishing side. And Sam is not somebody that has written loads before, but he has got a deep passion for carp, wherever they are, but particularly in the Northwest. Yeah. Because all the lads in the Northwest, quite rightly, would point out that there's a dearth of material. It isn't as well documented, and part of that is because it's kept quiet. But part of it is because the glare of national publicity isn't on the Northwest. But this book focuses attention onto a part of the world which has, I believe, and we've spoken about it recently, some of the best carp still living in the UK.
Yeah, not just gone, but now as well. Their carp are they're incredible, aren't they? Like,
there hasn't been the stockings up there.
I guess not. No,
so there's not the young fish that we've got in the south. Yeah. We've had several generations of young fish since I've been down south.
The only thing that northern carp don't have is, it's the only reason I think that the north isn't more popular or as popular than the south, is they're not as big.
No.
But as far as the calibre of the carp and what they look like as carp, some of them carp are now and ones in the past are mind-blowingly amazing carp. Like Robbie Bryars the other day, he showed me a couple of fish that were just like, they were amazing. They weren't massive. They were
those Cape Thorn fish, and the fish on that Cape Thorn estate, so Redmire and Cape Thorn Hall.
They're just like proper carp.
Just they're like the most incredible carp.
Yeah,
and they're still there.
Yeah,
you know. So I'm really looking forward to the Northern Chapters book.
He was sound as
and
well.
And listen, if you this should be bought by everybody.
Yes.
There's not going to be enough of them to be bought by everybody.
No.
He will sell out. They will sell out. It's a collective. I think that's really key to point out. And Sam did, went to certain lengths to point out that he is just the guy putting this together.
Yeah.
He's not looking to profit from this book. It's a legacy.
Yeah. He was extremely passionate. Like, I could see that in him. Like, he said, I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because I want to document the fish. And one of the things I thought was great that he has done with it is where he said, I've not chosen the stories that are... I've not chosen the captures that are the biggest or the guy with the best pictures. I've chosen the best stories of the carp because I want those fish and the story of those captures to be the best stories of those amazing carp that there is. Not just the guy who caught it the biggest, or not just the guy... he wants it to be all about the best stories. And he said, some of them, there's 2 stories of the same fish in the same book because the differing ways that 2 different guys approached that fish and caught the fish. And I thought that was a really, really interesting way to go about doing a book, because I think it's very easy to go, oh, what about him? His pictures are shit. And then go, oh, okay, well, maybe we don't. But he hasn't done it at all, has he? He's like, I want it to be the best story about the best carp. No. And he's adamant he's got the best stories.
I mean, you must have them as well, Al, like older prints, they've got more atmosphere. I don't know what it is, but like the sort of impreciseness and the imperfections of the old stuff it gives it certain...
Our pictures are very clean, very perfect now, aren't they? Like, they all look the same in a way. But yeah, I thought he was a really nice guy. And
isn't it refreshing to meet someone as untouched by the scene that we are in, if you like the sort of... he's completely felt like a very honest and a very credible guy.
100%. So, I mean, he just so genuine. Like when he said, I'm not doing this for the money, I'm doing it. A lot of people would do a book and they go, why have you done that book? Oh, I'm not doing it for the money, when actually they were. I hand on heart believe every word that he said, when saying, I've done this book because I want to document these carp. And you can tell, you can see in his eyes, you can tell by talking to him how proud he is of it. And I've heard of his name before. I've seen him about. I've heard of Sam many times, and I know that he was a very, very serious carp angler. And I think we spoke about this earlier.
The guy's fishing Burfield. Yeah, and driving down from,
but hasn't fished because of this book. This book has taken over his life, almost cancelled out his fishing for the past 2 or 3 years. So the most important thing in his life, which was his fishing, has been shelved so that he could do this book. And he would not have done that if he wasn't 100% committed and proud.
It was clear, wasn't it, that there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders because he's carrying the whole of the Northwest, and a lot of these guys who've agreed to write it, they won't have written before, and this is their legacy too. So, it shouldn't be underestimated what he's done and what he's doing, and it's great to see a nice book ready for Christmas. Let's say, like, I'm looking forward to cracking that open and having a beer and toasting to Sam, really, because he fucking deserves it, mate. Yeah. It's a rare light, Al. It's easy to get carried away and think that we're in a really, really corporate and commercial era, right? And I know that lots of old school anglers will tell you it was better back in the day. I was really interested recently. I've been binge reading Tim Paisley's Carp Amid the Storm, which I find a very bingeable book because the chapters are quite... they're all different. They're really beautifully written, really honest, and quite often they go to quite dark places in Tim's life at the time. But one of the things that really stuck with me recently was that he said, and in describing the carp scene in, I think it was probably the early 80s, this one, right? He said, a far cry from today's competitive and commercial carp world, right? So he thought that the 80s was competitive and commercial, and I'm constantly battered by people saying, oh, back in the day when ethics was this. No, people back in the day thought it was commercial and corporate as well. So there's always that germ of kind of spirit, and it exists today just the same as it, and in people like Sam, just the same as it did with Tim then. You know, it isn't all bad now. It wasn't all good then. So I would say, yes, we hark back, but maybe if you actually read around that, it wasn't all roses. No. You know, we're not. This isn't some kind of dreadful corporate commercial scene.
No, and I think
Sam's
book, yeah, is like, it's literally the proof in the pudding of that, isn't it? There's nothing corporate. It's just a lovely book, isn't it? You look, we flicked through. Well, we met him. Well, we went to the pub with Gaz after to see the proofs as they were proofing the book in the pub. Cunning man.
Yep.
Yeah. And it just looks great.
It's nice, doesn't it?
It looks great. It's a lovely book to look at. Like, even if you don't read it, just buy it and look through the pictures. You know, because it's great on the eye. But and Sam is so convinced that the stories in it are.
Yeah, and I believe him. Yeah. I mean, we've not got there yet. But in the last podcast we talked about the importance of documenting the northern fishing, and we will do that. It was nice to hear Sam's voice, and another Mancunian like Robbie Bryers recently, and Robbie's film went out last week as we record this, and I think it's fair to say, really, really fantastic response, given that Robbie isn't a household name.
Yeah, he's a guy that probably most people didn't. What I loved about him, the feedback we were getting in the build-up to the film is everyone just saying how nice he was. Don't often get that. I never had that, which is weird, isn't it? You think? But no, everyone was just saying. Loads of people saying how great angler he was, but so many people were just saying how much of a nice guy he was, and I guess that's testament to being a nice person. Like, great feedback, great angler by the sound of it. Caught some incredible carp, and the films we do of that style, that end game series that we call it, where you've got a passionate big carp angler who may not be the biggest name that anyone's ever heard of, just reliving a story of a carp or a collection of carp that mean the absolute world to him. People love those films, and rightly so, and it's nice to see people like Robbie, who probably didn't want to. I don't know how he ended up doing that. He wasn't like, he didn't come to us and ask, did he? Like,
no, it was
Dan went and filmed it.
Dan Wildbore, Dan
got him to do it. Convinced him. Probably.
Dan knew him a bit from.
And I bet he was thinking, though. I bet after he'd done it, he was thinking, "Oh, I wonder what this is going. Like, what will this be like?" But probably a bit.
I don't think Robbie did. I think it was fair to say that he didn't enjoy the film.
That's what I mean. I reckon he was thinking, "Oh,
this is going to be.
Should
awful.
I have done this?"
Yeah.
And actually, I think the opposite. Now he's done it. He'll look back on, or hopefully he'll look back on that film and that footage of those carp one day, even if it's the only film he ever does.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, "Oh, I'm glad I did that."
I mean, when good anglers tell you that someone's a good angler, when the right people are telling you that someone's a good angler, you kind of get that. And I spent some time with Robbie, not a lot, and it's he gets
you can tell.
Yeah.
And the carp, mate, were just out of this world, weren't they? You were very lucky to go and film
the bracelet at the end. Actually, and Kev's, of course. Kev seems like a little while ago already, but
those two at the end were just...
Well, all three, really. But the two at the end, Drop Scale and Aslin particularly, like, you see, there's that one picture of Adam with it, and Dan Wildbore took him. And I just think that I'll remember that pictures, and hopefully it was really nice to go and just do a job for Robbie with the camera, irrespective of the film we shot, which wasn't a lot, because I'm trying to do everything. And you're conscious that the fish are on the bank, which it's always got to come first, especially with someone like Robbie. He's not going to piss about. Wants it back. It's history in your hands. You don't want to be the guy that. So we rattled through it, but we did all right. And it was a lovely atmospheric autumn morning on Stonies, which for me does have a certain atmosphere. It does. It feels like proper carp fishing whenever you go there. Like, it still feels like the pinnacle of carp fishing. Lots of people consider it. Stonies, like, if you graduated through Lynch, you ended up on testing yourself against those fish, didn't you? And we sat and chatted with Terry Dempsey for a bit, which was lovely. Nice to see Tell enjoying his fishing. Caught the odd one this year as well. I think he had the bus notably, didn't he?
Yeah, and a common, big common as well.
Yeah, so it still feels, after a few years, perhaps when it's gone a bit quiet, that it feels like maybe things are happening. Maybe it's and people like Robbie, if he isn't top rod, he's close.
And he's caught the carp.
I think he's really
certainly he wants the bus.
Quite keen on the bus.
Yeah, he said that to me the other day. He's for me. No Name's my favourite. That's my favourite one in there.
Yeah, I mean,
gnarly old thing.
Come out £49 now, which is
great carp, and he caught
that's
that.
what makes you think it's on this. If fish like No Name are 49, Kev's is 50.
Yeah.
You feel like maybe there's a bit of a renaissance.
I think a baby choco, he said about maybe
if it's there.
That was an incredible fish, isn't it? A really, really nice carp.
Which could be really, really big. Robbie was so refreshing. Everything about it was positive. Like you say, it was right in right in the crosshairs of what we're trying to do with SIP. It's all about not taking the easy option, and that often means going to anglers who are right in the middle of it and in the middle of the passionate period, rather than going to someone and saying, "Can you reproduce this for us?" Despite the fact that really,
you need to go there. You need to go there. It's close. Like I think when you look back to how many years ago it was when we actually started Cypography, like that kind of film was like what we wanted everything to be. It's like we just do this every time. You can't do that all the time. But like if we ever get a sniff at the opportunity to make that kind of content, then we will, And they're my favourite kind of films.
You can't plan them.
But you can't plan them. There is no planning. It's like you get lucky. You get a phone call from a guy, and for whatever reason, he might have only rung you because he couldn't get someone else. But you get these tiny little windows of opportunity to come up. If you don't seize them, then they're gone. And if you're not there in the moment, or you're not there at the right times, it's very hard to go and film the same story a year down the line or 6 months down the line is not the same as just being there at the time. And that's why people love those films so much. With guys like Robbie, who are just, the
breath of fresh air.
Yeah, breath of fresh air. Your everyday guy, loves carp fishing, catching great carp, telling this story, and they're all just coming across so perfectly. Like, I love carp fishing, I'm buzzing about catching these carp, and it clearly rubs off on the people that watch and listen to it, because the reaction to those films is always, it's one of the best films you've ever done,
I bet that made a few people go fishing.
It makes you want to go fishing, yeah. But you can't plan that, you can't fake that, you can't schedule that. We can't go, right, what we'll do is we'll schedule in 5 of them films like what Robbie's done for next year. We'll do 20 of them, because everyone will love them all the time. They just, every now and then you get the opportunity.
I'm really excited to see where Robbie goes with it all as well. Like you sort of alluded to there, he's not in it for, I feel like probably for the first time, he genuinely did us a bit of a favour by filming
100%.
that. Because he is not interested in publicity, really. So I'll be fascinated to see where it all goes for him.
I said, messaging him the other day, I said, look, if you ever fancy, I know you didn't enjoy doing it, if you ever fancy doing something else, and he basically was like, no, not really. Yeah. And fine, do you know what I mean? Fair play.
It's good that there are people like that out there.
Definitely, yeah.
And I'm glad that we were able to get that. And shout out to Big Dan Wildboard, because that is what he, when he was at Sticky, that's what he did. And like,
he was the guy at the end of the phone.
It's seen as a bit of a new thing now. It seems to have been a bit airbrushed out, that this idea that you follow someone through a campaign, that's new somehow. Dan was doing that, and the success that he built there was the relationships. He was the arch relationship builder with the anglers. So they called him first.
Wasn't it? Lots of anglers.
Yeah, and he was quick to know. He was quick to realise that if you've got an angler that's sponsored by 2 or 3 people, you need to be the guy they ring.
Yeah.
And he was, because he put the time in.
Yeah.
And now it's a model that other people are rolling out as well, which is testament to how well he did it.
Yeah.
So and it was him. It was through him that the Robbie thing really came to fruition. He called me when he was on his way to film Kev. So brilliant to have. And God, if we can get a few of those over a year, mate, we'll be really lucky. But like you say, they can't be planned.
And it is literally that. If we can get a few of those kind of films over a year, you're lucky.
It's a bit like it's a time of year, right? If you've got a fire, put your fire on, get yourself a glass of something you like, put Johnny Mac on talking about the Black Mirror, like logs on the fire. If you want a bit of fire in your belly, we've got, I would say, John, I have re-listened to the Black Mirror story, but the one he told prior to us actually recording it, when it was just me and him, and you and Dave were filming that fish for Jimmy, the big comment that he had. John told me that story, and I don't think I'll ever hear anything so raw and passionate and detailed. I hope to, because John's not the only one capable of doing that. Yeah. But it was a great story, and we've, having those as a resource. If you're feeling like you need a bit of a big carp, fix, then that's a good place to go.
They're very inspiring, aren't they?
I get it from many sources. Reading Oz's book makes you want to go above and beyond.
I read something Oz wrote the other day. I loved it. It was like a quote, and it was something like, at Coninbrook, before it got light, you would see it's one of my favourite things I've ever read. Lights. And I read it, and I thought, oh my God, you've literally, it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was something like, every morning before it was light, you would see blue, inky, as you looked across inky black surface of Coninbrook Lake, you would see small blue dots around the lake as every carp angler was up before light, because the biggest carp in the land was at stake and no one wanted to miss a second. Yeah. And I was like, to have that as a memory, for him to have clocked that and realised the intensity of that, even though it's pitch black, to look out a lake and sense the intensity of the fishing on that venue at the time, just by the fact that all them stoves were on and everyone was up, I just thought was it was a very, very inspiring. And
he's a very thoughtful writer, Oz, as well, actually. Writing involves working something up often. It's not just that first image, it's crafting the sentence, and he's good at that. I don't know whether he gets it right first time or whether it takes him a little bit to do it, but if you haven't read Forces of Nature, then it's a good big carp book. It really is. It gets you right to the coalface of what is needed to catch the biggest carp in the land.
Yeah, he feels every he feels every passing he feels it all happening around him. Yeah,
he's also one of those guys that remembers shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether or not that perfect image that he conjured is as it was, who knows? Because obviously, we all need a bit of artistic license. But I don't remember everything, El.
Yeah, I've never thought.
I don't write it down either.
I've never thought that. And I just pictured it. I thought it was I found it such a atmospheric piece of work. Would that be right? I felt that. Great sentence. One of my favourite.
It takes you
sentence.
there.
It did. It took me straight there, and I thought, you have nailed that. You've literally. All of those years of all those anglers fishing for that carp, you've encompassed that all into that one sentence and just painted the picture perfectly with that one sentence. So yeah, well done, Ozzy. Done well there.
He did. Good old Ozzy. We love Oz. And I see it a lot now. Almost everybody who is now thrust into the spotlight, if you look at the comments on a be it a fish picture post or a YouTube film, book. There's almost people get called out for. I mean, most of them are never going to do it, and in fact, probably isn't warranted now. But we've had a few years without any. Yeah, really. There's not been. Obviously, Daryl's about now, isn't he? Daryl's coming out, but it's been quite nice to almost have a bit of a reset where you haven't had 4 out of Christmas.
It was before. Pennin would have been one of the last ones, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Pennin.
Trying to think what I've bought, Adams.
I suppose Oz was he one of the more recent ones, maybe?
Yeah, but that must be 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah,
I reckon it was one of the more.
But obviously, Northern Chapters we are going to shout out because incredible production.
Oh, Tell. Mike's going. Who's Tell?
Tell's was gone in the blink of an eye, though, wasn't it?
Tell's book was only out for. It never even come out. It just got sold straight away, and that was it. Gone.
Tell broke the internet.
It was on sale for this long, and then it was gone.
That was almost a year ago.
He was like, So Tell brought his book out for 3 seconds.
Yeah, but if you can't, if you don't have a big library of books and you don't know where to go within that, then Oz's is a great starting point. And if not, dip into the end game because we've got some nice stories there as well. But
I think as well, without sounding like we're just all of a sudden pushing people towards watching our videos, this time of year when you're out fishing, the leaf fall, I find it a really interesting topic of conversation because it has a big effect on the fishing. I've no doubt about that. So many times over the years, you see the leaves start coming in, even little things like the rigs you start having to start using, switching bottoms to pop-ups and that, like that's a real thing. Them leaves do go in the water, they do drop to the bottom, and they do cause problems for us as anglers. But one thing, it's always great talking to Simon Scott, like, isn't it? You know Scotty, you've known Simon very well, have done for a number of years, and I've known him a long time as well. And whenever you talk to him, whether, you know, he's just as interesting now as he always was.
Yeah.
And we did a series of him, talking of old content, things to watch at this time of year while everyone's indoors. And we did a series of him called Seasons of Carp. A while ago now. I wouldn't mind betting that's probably a couple of years ago, when I was probably 2 years younger.
Yeah.
That series was all about carp fishing, but which we call it the scientific side of carp fishing, the things that are happening around us that as normal anglers we're not really aware of, or certainly the scientific side of it. The leaf fall this time of year has a very detrimental effect, and I think if you're a Cypography member, maybe even if you're not, but if you are and you've not seen that, checked into that series, like, we're in the autumn now, we're going into the winter. Watch those two, watch the autumn, watch the winter episode of our series with Scotty, Seasons of Carp, because it is packed full of information, and they're things that, like, I was sitting at a lake the other day, surrounded by the oak trees, watching these leaves falling in, and I sat there and I thought, what leaves did Simon say are the worst leaves you could ever have to fall into a lake? And I was like, I'm sure it was oak leaves. And I'm just looking up around me, and like everywhere I looked, it was like oak tree, oak tree, oak tree. On the surface of the lake was covered in them. And all of a sudden I'm sat there thinking, oh, this isn't good. Like, before long, we're going to be in trouble here, and the lake's probably going to fish terribly. So, you know, I think that little series of films, just having Simon tell you all these interesting topics of conversation, like, I think as anglers, everyone's always looking for new bits of information. You get all the rig stuff, you get that kind of stuff, the tactical side of things, you get it all the time, everywhere. But I think listening to Scotty, if you have the opportunity, if you are a Cypography member, listen to that, because, you know, there's a lot going on at this time of year. We're big transition now between autumn and into winter. Like, there's a hell of a lot happening that people, I don't think.
I didn't even know you changed the pop-up at this time of year.
No, I don't always. But the sort of the reality of maybe having to do that, you know, it's not that I always would, but I bet you there's a lot of people out there that do because of the leaves, you know. And I think especially in certain areas of the lake, they become a real problem. Like, if the leaves are constantly getting blown, they're things Simon sort of spoke about. I think, like, areas where all the leaf is getting blown towards and then dropping to the bottom. Not only in those areas are you going to find leaf litter in, you know, a large amount of leaf litter, which probably would end up warranting the use of pop-ups. You're also going to get lots of deoxygenated water, all sorts of really interesting stuff. I don't think people naturally think of day to day when they're out fishing.
No, it kind of gives us, because as anglers we're quite instinctive about things, but it gives you a framework within which to kind of interpret what you're seeing. It's like some facts to really...
Yeah, it's not instinct. It is that his is like...
Yeah, no, this
scientific.
Is what's happening.
Yeah.
And then it's down to us to use that information how we see fit. You might find your own interpretation given what, you know, Simon says, but it's nice to have those definitives, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he's he's a
endlessly fascinating Simon.
Yes, endlessly fascinating guy. So I think we'll call it a day because we're getting on a little bit. We're gonna stop the cameras in a minute, and if the card corrupts and this podcast disappears. It's been fun, isn't it, doing a podcast? But we're not going to do it. We're not going to. I'm not willing to sit here and redo it all again. So maybe you'll never hear this. Hopefully you do. Hopefully this is the end of the second Cypography podcast, and in a month's time you'll get number 3. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks very much, everyone.
See you later. See you on the bank sometime.
Goodbye. See you on the bank sometime.